journey to Singapore begins with a Qantas flight to Changi International Airport just after lunchtime in Perth. I didn't get to record anything because we were pretty late. Surprise, surprise. I've already been to Changi before and everyone knows it's one of the best airports in the world. We wasted no time and headed to the Jewel because this is something that we both hadn't seen yet. Changi Airport has got free Wi-Fi all around the terminals, which allowed us to catch a grab into the CBD of Singapore, where our hotel was. First impressions were that Singapore looked really clean and there was a lot of green vegetation, which I really liked. In the distance, we got to see Marina Bay Sands, the Flower Dome and Cloud Forest as we drove in. The city looks pretty amazing at sunset. Shout out to our Grab driver who really went out of his way to give us some noteworthy facts about the city, like Marina Bay Sands having a total of 2,000 rooms and some must-try recommendations for local food like Singapore's famous chili crab. We were staying at the Robertson House out in Clarke Quay, and this is all shout out to Luxury Escapes for hooking us up with a good deal. Upon arrival, we quickly checked in and went up to our room. So this is a quick tour of their premier queen room, which is what we booked. It was pretty nice, but to our surprise, it looked a lot smaller than what we were expecting, and to be honest, to some extent cramped. Lucky for us, the very helpful staff was with us when we checked in and offered to show us what the panoramic Riverview room looked like. After seeing the panoramic Riverview room, it was a no-brainer for us, and we decided to change rooms for an additional 300 Australian dollars over the 4 nights, which really wasn't bad at all considering how good the views were in that room. So this right here is a quick tour of the panoramic Riverview room, and as you can see, it was definitely worth the extra dollars as we got more space, but most importantly, this massive panoramic view with the city and Marina Bay Sands in the distance. We freshened up and headed downstairs to try out the ground floor restaurant at the Robertson House called Entrepot for dinner. The food was very delicious, and I'm telling you guys right now, this was arguably some of the best fish I have ever had in my life. After dinner, we decided to take a night walk into Clarke Quay to see what was going on a Tuesday evening in downtown Singapore. As soon as we walked out of the hotel, we were hit with the face smacking heat and humidity, which was a bit of a shock. We were actually surprised to see the pubs and bars open on a Tuesday night. Seems like the nightlife in Singapore is pretty legit. This was at Clarke Quay Central. We were really impressed at how the city looked lively, but not so much partying and getting drunk, but actually just people taking walks, enjoying the outdoors, and even some having fun on the Slingshot amusement ride. It all felt really safe and family friendly, which was quite refreshing, if I had to be honest. We spent the rest of the night just walking and sightseeing. Singapore is a city that really comes alive at night visually. I like how there is a huge focus on light decorations and colors almost everywhere you go. We got back to our hotel and got some much needed rest after what was a pretty long day of traveling. Day 2 begins at 11 a.m. After we slept in because we were super tired. We also missed our complimentary breakfast that came with the room. On this day, we wasted no time and decided to go spend the day at Marina Bay Sands and just see what the hype is all about. As you can see, the weather was overcast and there were actually intermittent showers throughout the day, which was kind of annoying. We called up a Grab again and we were on our way. The weather was looking pretty dreadful, if I had to be honest, but we weren't gonna let it ruin our day. Upon arrival, I was really in awe at how big the place is. I mean, it's one thing seeing MBS on the internet and on photos, but when you actually get there, the place is absolutely massive. We tried to go up to the Sky Park, however, it was temporarily closed due to concern of there potentially being lightning. So yeah, that wasn't great. We decided to head to the shopping mall, which is also part of MBS. This is probably a good time to do a full rundown of Marina Bay Sands and what this place is. So, a lot of people think of MBS as this super luxurious 5-star hotel that is symbolic when it comes to Singapore, but MBS is so much more than just that. It is actually a massive resort consisting of 3 main towers that are joined together at the top by a large observation deck, which also houses what is the longest single infinity pool in the world. The Sky Park itself is longer than the Eiffel Tower, and the 3 towers each house a different hotel. But in addition to all that, MBS is also home to the Art Science Museum at the waterfront, 2 theaters with 4,000 seats, and a pretty impressive shopping mall with over 170 luxury brand stores and a wide selection of restaurants and bars. It is truly some feat of engineering. After a walk to the waterfront and mall, the weather cleared up and the Sky Park observation deck was reopened again, so we quickly headed up there. A tourist ticket to go up to the observation deck cost about 50 Singapore dollars per person, which I found to be a little on the expensive side, but I guess that's the norm here, because let me tell you, Singapore is a very expensive city. Like many other major cities around the world, Singapore is definitely no exception when it comes to cost of living. The deck was pretty packed with people, but apparently that comes as no surprise since this is one of the most noteworthy attractions for not only tourists, but everyone in Singapore. Having missed breakfast, we were super hungry and headed downstairs to try out one of the restaurants at MBS called Blossom, which is a Japanese style restaurant. The food was pretty delicious and fancy as expected when you're at Marina Bay Sands. It was also super expensive, which is something that was becoming the norm for us while in Singapore. We headed back to the Robertson House at Clarke Quay and spent some time at the outdoor pool area where we had a few cocktails at the pool bar. Later that evening, we got ready for dinner and headed across the road from our hotel to a little place called Tipsy Hippo. This was what looked like a bar and restaurant that we kept seeing as we drove in and out of our hotel and wanting to try out. But apparently they call it a gastropub, whatever that means. This was a very chilled and laid-back place with a very relaxed atmosphere. One of the things we ordered was this short Ferris wheel because why not, haha. It was mostly because of how cool it looked. I ordered these Wagyu beef cubes that were so good. Overall, we ordered a couple small plates to share and the food was good, nothing super special or anything to write home about, but very decent. We then got a grab and headed to Gardens by the Bay, and this actually happened coincidentally that the park is actually accessible for free at night, so we didn't have to pay for anything to get this incredible and magical experience. When we got there, most of the people were leaving, but I actually preferred that as it really became super quiet and intimate, which really made our night. And of course, you cannot ignore the elephant in the room that is MBS in all of her glory, lit up against the night sky. Incredible. I don't know what it was, but perhaps a combination of the sensory trail with all the natural scents of the plants and flowers, with the sounds and the lights. This was magical and ended up being a very simple moment that became truly special. We headed back to our hotel to have some rest after a long day in the Lion City. We start off day 3 at 8 a.m. right in time for breakfast downstairs at Entrepot. It was an Asian style infused breakfast with lots of spices and flavors and vegetables. I really enjoyed this breakfast. It was really unique and had so much flair with the Asian style flavors. We actually ended up making sure to attend every single breakfast after this one because of how good the food was. And as you can see, we were pretty much spoiled for choice with the breakfast menu. And this is something that was consistent throughout our stay. You can tell that the Entrepot team really made an effort to make sure that breakfast was always top tier for the guests. On this day, we had actually planned to head to the famous Universal Studios on Sentosa Island. So after grabbing a few bits of camera gear, we called another grab and we were off. This Is Us when we first got in at Universal Studios, and it seemed pretty dead, if I have to be honest. It's probably because the weather wasn't looking too promising. We got out our tickets and were ready for a day out at Universal Studios. We made sure to get a few pieces from the Universal store so that we always have something we brought back home with us from Singapore. At this point, we figured we wouldn't be able to experience every single thing that the theme park has to offer. So we decided to just go for the noteworthy experiences and the ones we were interested in. There were these really nice classic cars right outside Mel's Drive-In, which were pretty cool. Made sure to get a couple pictures and videos of them. We then decided to be a bit adventurous before even going into the theme park by catching the Sentosa Express, which is the tram that we saw in the Grab on the way to Sentosa Island. The idea was to go to Imbiah Station and catch the Merlion cable car so we can get some scenic views of Sentosa Island in the Lion City in the distance. The Merlion cable car ride was actually really fun and gave us wonderful panoramic views of Sentosa Island and its surroundings. And as you can see, the weather was straight up moving mad with light showers 1 minute and complete sunlight the next. The weather was proving to be really bipolar. We then decided to take the return trip on the Merlion cable car to Imbiah Lookout Station, where we then wanted to go to Skyline Luge. For those that don't know what that is, Skyline Luge is like this really cool downhill karting experience. The karts aren't motorized, which is why it is downhill, but they are super small and are operated by a bicycle-like handle to steer them. This was so fun and had the adrenaline pumping that we did it twice and ended up going back up for another ride after the first. So cameras aren't allowed on this ride, and it's probably for the better as a safety concern because you really need both hands when steering the kart. If you happen to find yourself on Sentosa Island, you definitely do not want to miss this experience. It is super fun. We headed back to the Resort World Station on the Sentosa Express yet again and continued with our tour of Universal Studios. Our first stop was the Big Bird's Emporium, which is basically just an all things Sesame Street stop at Universal Studios. We got onto the little train style ride, and it really brought back so many memories from my childhood watching Sesame Street on TV. What a nostalgic experience.
Hey, bird! So many heroes!
Next up, we hit the Transformers booth, which was packed for days. We ended up standing in the queue for literally close to an hour. But in the end, we got to experience this really thrilling 4D ride with Optimus Prime and many other Transformers. This was so worth the wait and was such an exhilarating experience. Trust me, the video doesn't know justice at all. You really need to be there to experience all the shakes, the sounds, the movements. They even had hot air blowing in our faces at some point when there was an explosion. It's crazy. Back outside, we continued our tour of the theme park, and at this point, we really didn't want to go to any of the experiences because they were all packed and we really weren't trying to stand in another queue for an hour. So we ended up just sightseeing all around the theme park and seeing what it had to offer besides the rides and stuff. Jurassic Park was cool, but I feel like it was rather muted. There really weren't that many dinosaurs or anything like that. Far, far away looked really cool in the distance, but once we got up close, we realized that you can't really go inside the castle section, which was a bummer. So we did the next best thing, which was making sure to take some pictures in front of the castle, because why not, right? You know, the vibes. At the end of the day, we ended up taking the Sentosa Express this time to Vivo City, which was a shopping center that we wanted to check out. That ended up being a bit of a fail, with us taking the tram in the wrong direction and ending up at Beach Station. But lucky for us, the Sentosa Express is free, so we simply hopped onto the return tram and finally made it to Vivo City Station, where we walked around and explored the food stations. We then caught a Grab back to our hotel, where we relaxed a little and rested. Later that night, we headed out again on foot to Clark Quay Central. Our destination was Jumbo Seafood, which was recommended to us by a very kind and elderly lady that drove us in the Grab back to our hotel the night we went to Gardens by the Bay. She told us that we'd be able to get the city's best chili crab here. Just walking at night, it's easy to see just how safe and clean Singapore is. I literally felt like if I dropped my ice cream on the street, I could just pick it up and eat it. And I'm not even exaggerating, the city is absolutely spotless. Furthermore, it is one of the safest cities in the world. Like literally, a woman can go out for a run in the middle of the night without having to worry about anything at all. Oh, and I think I forgot to mention this, but boy, is that Netflix movie Crazy Rich Asians a thing or what? We were seeing supercars and Rolls Royces all over the place. For the first time ever, I actually got to see a lady with a real-life Birkin bag, which was kind of surreal considering how much they cost. So, yay, Singapore has got some super rich folks. Once we got to Jumbo Seafood, we wasted no time and ordered some chili crab and some scallops. The scallops were pretty mid, if I'm honest, but that chili crab was so good. Okay, so don't judge us, but what we decided to do on this night was to have a double dinner so that we could try out more restaurants. So after Jumbo Seafood, we hit the streets and we wanted to try out Sahara restaurant, which was like this Middle Eastern place that we saw on Google reviews that looked so good. Once we got there, we ordered this platter with a number of meats, some Turkish bread and hummus. And I'm happy to say that it was definitely worth the walk because that food was bussin' for real. After dinner, we walked all the way to our hotel and burned all those calories. So hey, if you're still judging for the double dinner, you can stop now. We got back to the hotel and got some much needed sleep after another long day in the Lion City. Day 4 starts off in the morning with some crab congee, and I don't know about y'all, but this was the first time I ever heard of a savory porridge, and this shit was bussin' for days. I added a little chili oil and crunch to mine, and then I put it on top of my omelet and the rest of my breakfast. And for real, come on now, don't even know why I only discovered congee now, TBH. On this day, we had planned to go back to Gardens by the Bay and check out the Flower Dome and Cloud Forest, which is basically the two domes at Gardens by the Bay. First of all, before we get into anything else, I just want to say that it was fucking cold in those domes, and I have no idea why it needs to be that cold though. I don't know why flowers and plants in a greenhouse need to be that cold. If anyone has a valid reason, please enlighten me in the comments section. I'd really appreciate that. Besides being cold, the Flower Dome was epic to visit, and there were so many different plant species and types out. Really had my mind spinning just how diverse their collection was. The flowers though really caught my eye. There was an assortment of flowers all around the dome, and they were beautiful, but for some strange reason I could not smell them at all. I don't know if this is a pollen thing to do with allergies or something, but I felt like everywhere I went, I was expecting some lush flower scents and fragrances. And when I got there, there was absolutely nothing. Everything was completely muted. I get that they have to try to accommodate everyone, including those with allergies, but I don't know. It just felt weird seeing so many flowers without actually being able to smell them. Next up, we headed to the Cloud Forest, where we immediately got a glimpse of the 35-meter indoor waterfall, which is quite the spectacle. One thing I did notice in these domes was just the quality of the air in there was incredible. I don't know if it's just me, but the air felt so sterile and fresh. I guess that's just one of the benefits of being inside a greenhouse. I don't know, there was something about being in this environment that just felt so zen and calming and relaxing. Before we left the building, there was huge presentation about sustainability and taking care of the environment, which I really appreciated, and I cannot commend the people behind the Cloud Forest anymore, because this is a truly positive message that's supposed to improve the environment around us. After the Cloud Forest, we decided to head to the CBD, where we got a glimpse of the heart of Singapore and what really makes it tick. We went down to Chinatown to see what the vibes were there, and it was pretty cool to see the contrast in cultures in Singapore with all the Asian influence. Buddha Tooth Relic Temple and Museum was really cool in the heart of Chinatown. Just look at what the building looks like from the outside. It's also pretty cool how they keep the rules traditional inside, so no hats, but you can still record and take pictures, which is nice. This is us back on the street, and we made sure to try some famous sugarcane juice, freshly squeezed out of the machine, which was interesting. I had never tried anything like this before, and it tasted like raw sugar water. Didn't like it too much because at the end of the day, it's literally just sugar. Before heading back to our hotel, we went on a quest for a liquor store, and I do not know what is going on in Singapore, but why is liquor so damn expensive? Like a tiny 400 milliliter bottle of Roku goes for about 60 Singaporean dollars, which is insane. That's like double what you pay in Australia. We got a grab and headed back to the hotel where we rested up for a little bit because we had planned to go out clubbing that night at the popular Marquee Club at Marina Bay Sands. That ended up being a complete fail because of how tired we were. We ordered Singaporean KFC, which was really tasty, and after that we completely blacked out. Day 5 begins at 10 a.m. Just after breakfast, we decided to go out for a swim at the pool area at our hotel. I remember this day was super hot, and going for a swim was a good refresher in the morning before taking the day on. We did not have anything in particular planned for this day, as it was meant to just be a rest day, so we were pretty much winging everything. We went downstairs to Entrepot, the restaurant at the Robertson House, and we just wanted to use up our meal vouchers that we got from Luxury Escapes with our booking. Nothing too crazy, we just had some fish cakes and some grilled octopus and some cocktails. Later on, we decided to head back to Tipsy Hippo so we could have the short Ferris wheel one more time before leaving Singapore. And this time, our waiter remembered us and offered to double the number of shots and basically fill out the entire Ferris wheel, which was very kind of him. We went back to the hotel and relaxed while we waited for our dinner reservation at Laurie's The Prime Rib. Laurie's The Prime Rib is a famous American upscale gourmet steakhouse with restaurants around the world, including in Taipei, Japan, Hong Kong, Seoul, Korea, and 4 restaurants in the United States. This is a classic old school steakhouse that every BBQ or steak connoisseur has got to check out. When we got there, our table had a really nice view of the city and an intersection with tons of pedestrians crossing throughout the night. A place like this is all about the experience. This is the wine that we got, and they let me keep the cork, which is new. I had no idea that that was actually a thing. Of course, we had to try out the famous butter lobster, and while the lobsters were pretty small, they were very delicious. We got a couple vegetables too, but now it was time for the main dish, the prime rib. I went for a medium rare, and it's pretty cool that you get to see the chef cutting up your steak in the world famous silver carts. They generally bring the cart much closer to the table so you can get the full hands-on experience. It's just that our table was in a pretty confined space. Our waiter also did the famous spinning bowl salad tossing preparation on a bed of ice and served us the famous salad, which was really cool. It's such an amazing experience like no other. This is what my Laurie's cut looked like, and trust me when I say this, it may not look too appealing, but it definitely tasted way better than it looked. I do not know what they put in this prime USDA beef, but gad damn, that shit was bussin'. Hands down the best ribeye I've ever had, and I eat a lot of steak. Day 6 begins at 10 a.m. We had just come from breakfast and wanted to check out the hotel's gym and other facilities. Near the pool area, they had these somewhat private cabanas, which are pretty cool if you want a little more privacy or want to do your yoga or Pilates without going inside the gym. The gym was pretty small and didn't have every gym equipment you can think of, but I guess the Robertson House is not the biggest hotel with a total of 336 rooms, though I did expect more gym equipment. At the very least, a treadmill and a bench press would have been nice. This was our very last day in Singapore, and we headed back to our room where we savored the last few moments of that breathtaking view. For those of you interested in what it costs to dine out at Lawry's, this is our receipt from the previous night, and you can see we basically spent 600 Singaporean dollars for everything that we had. So yes, Singapore is expensive, and more so is the fine dining. I mean, 19 Singapore dollars for a bottle of still water is absolutely insane to me. We then checked out, and the hotel staff were kind enough to keep our luggage as we hung around since our flight was in the evening. With some hours to spare, we decided to go to Entrepot to use up the remainder of our drink vouchers from Luxury Escapes. We went back to the reception where we waited for our Grab to take us to Changi International Airport. We decided to go to the airport very early so that we could relax and spend some time in one of the lounges as we waited for our flight. The lounge of choice this time was the Plaza Premium Lounge at Changi's Terminal 1. We, of course, got in with the use of my Revolut card, which is proving to be very much worth the subscription price. This is some of the food that we had. It was very delicious and fresh, and I have to say Changi's Plaza Premium Lounge is by far the best one I've been to. It is well equipped, the facilities are new, and the food options are just plentiful. You can see I did a walk around here. It's pretty big, and it even has a kitchen and dining area where you can sit, make a coffee, or grab some drinks. They had a salad bar up. Overall, the food was Asian style influenced, very tasty and very fresh. I was very impressed to learn that they even had an a la carte menu where you could order some chicken rice, Singapore laksa, and some noodle soup. Unfortunately, the drinks at the bar weren't free, but considering how well equipped the lounge was as a whole, that was something that I very easily turned a blind eye to because glasses of wine were free of charge. Overall, I rate this lounge a very stellar 5 out of 5, simply because it does exactly what an airport lounge is meant to do, and then some. The food was amazing, it was clean, there were many food options, the seating and facilities were new and well maintained, and an added bonus of some beautiful panoramic views of one of the runways at Changi Airport. I cannot fault it. Reflecting on our visit to Singapore, there is one key thing that comes to mind: the power of dreams. To think that less than 60 years ago, there really wasn't much on this island that we now call Singapore, the Lion City. All it took was a monumental vision from the founding father and first Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. A dream that he would pursue, and one that would propel this country to become one of the most prosperous nations in the world, with a highly developed free market economy that is very attractive for investors around the world. I remember walking through the park at Gardens by the Bay and just thinking to myself as I gazed at a brightly lit Marina Bay sands against the darkness of the night, human beings are truly something special to come up with ideas and dreams beyond the wildest of imaginations, and then to execute it and be daring enough to even try. It's so powerful, and one of the key takeaways from our visit for me was just being inspired to always chase your dreams. Each and every person on this earth has a dream of some sort, and each and every one of those dreams are all valid. Don't ever let anyone tell you what you can or cannot do, because you're capable of things far beyond your wildest imagination.